All right, hi folks, this is Larry Mussolino. I'm recording a video for MATH022, and I wanted to look at Objective 10 here. And notice there's really only 3 topics in Objective 10, so let's do all 3 of these as some examples. And what you're going to notice here is we're going to end up setting up a system of 2 equations, and then we're going to want to solve the system. Now, you might remember from Objective 9 that when solving a system of equations, you can either use a substitution method or an elimination method. And I'll comment on when it might be better to use which method as we do some of these examples. All right, so why don't we get started here? Let's do this first topic. All right, so these problems are going to be word problems that you have to translate to equations. All right, now the first step for these kinds of word problems is figure out how many unknowns are there. How many quantities are you trying to figure out? Well, it says here a textbook store sold a combined total of 344 biology and chemistry textbooks. The number of biology textbooks sold was 3 times the number of chemistry. How many textbooks of each type were sold? Well, I could see there's 2 unknown quantities here because I want to figure out the number of biology textbooks and the number of chemistry textbooks. That's what they're asking me to figure out. Well, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to let, these are 2 unknown quantities. So I'm going to let X be the number of biology textbooks, Y be the number of chemistry books. You can switch this around and let X be the number of chemistry books if you want. It doesn't matter. It's totally up to you. All right, now we're going to try to write 2 equations based on the facts given in the wording of the problem. Well, the first sentence says there's a total of 344. Well, if X is the number of one kind and Y is the number of the other kind, the first equation I can write is X plus Y equals 344. Because they're telling me if I add together the number of these 2 types of textbooks, the total should be 344. All right, let me go to the second fact. It says the number of biology textbooks is 3 times the number of chemistry. All right, well, I'm going to try to translate that to an equation. What they're telling me is the number of biology books is 3 times the number of the chemistry books. Well, I can translate this into an equation. First of all, when I see the word is translates to an equal sign. The number of biology books, we call that X. The number of chemistry books, we call that Y. And 3 times means multiply by 3. So we have that X equals 3Y. Well, I'm going to solve this system of equations. I'm going to use substitution here. Because remember, when you have one equation already set equal to one of the variables, like X, substitution is the way to go. So I'm going to write down the first equation, X plus Y equals 344. But I know that X is equal to 3Y. So I'm going to replace this X with the quantity 3Y. So I just substituted for X the quantity 3Y. All right, well, this is 3Y plus 1Y. That's 4Y. And so I have 4Y equals 344. I'll divide both sides by 4. I'm getting that Y equals, I think that's 86. Well, that was the number of chemistry books, 86. Well, I also want to know the number of biology books. Well, I can either use the first equation or the second equation. Let me use the second equation because it's a little easier. It says X equals 3Y. But we know Y is 86, so this is going to be 3 times 86. 3 times 86 is 258, I think. So this answer here is 258. So we first figured out how many unknown quantities there were in this problem, 2 of them. We let X equal the first unknown quantity. We let y be the second unknown quantity. And then from the wording of the problem, you have to try to write out two equations. And this is the tricky part. I think this is the most challenging part, is translating the wording into an equation. Well, if you could write out the sentence in words, then sometimes you can do a direct substitution. The number of biology books was X. The word is equals. 3 times means multiply by 3. Number of chemistry books was Y. So it let me translate directly into an equation. All right, let's do another example like this. Let's go to this one. All right. So again, they're going to ask us, they're going to ask us to translate this scenario into a system of equations. All right, so let's read it over. It says a party rental company has chairs and tables to rent. The total cost to rent 3 chairs and 8 tables is $58. The cost to rent 5 chairs and 2 tables is $23. What is the cost to rent each chair and each table? All right, well, I'm noticing there's 2 unknown quantities. I'm going to let X be the cost to rent a chair, because that's one question they're asking me, and Y is going to be the cost to rent a table. All right, so let me go to this sentence right here. If you rent 3 chairs and 8 tables, the cost is $58. Well, if I rent 3 chairs, each chair is going to cost me X dollars to rent. So I'm going to write that as 3 times X, because I want to figure out the cost to rent 3 chairs. That's 3X. What about the cost to rent 8 tables? Well, each table costs Y to rent, so I'm going to write that as 8Y. And altogether, it said this total cost is $58. All right, let me go to the second sentence. It says if you rent 5 chairs and 2 tables, the cost is $23. Well, if I rent 5 chairs, each chair costs X, that's 5X. If I rent 2 tables, that means the tables are going to cost me 2 times Y, because each table costs me Y. And altogether, this should add up to 23. So notice I have a system of 2 equations. I want to solve this. I can either use substitution or elimination. Substitution is when it's easy to get X or Y by itself on one side of the equation. Well, in our example, it's not easy. So I'm going to use elimination here. If you remember the elimination method, what it says is you want to cancel out either X or Y as you add these equations straight down. So I'm going to decide, should I try to eliminate X or eliminate Y? Well, let's say I want to eliminate Y. Here is an 8Y. My goal is to get this 2Y to look like a negative 8Y. Because remember, I want to take 8Y and add negative 8Y so the Y's get canceled out or eliminated. So let's use elimination to eliminate Y in this example. I'm only picking Y because I think it's going to be a little easier. Well, I want to get this 4Y. I want to get this to really be a negative 8Y. That means I should multiply the second equation by negative 4. Because if I can multiply the second equation by negative 4, this 2Y will become negative 8Y. It'll cancel out with a positive 8Y, and that's what I'm looking to do. So let me copy equation A as is, because I'm not going to change that. So here's the first equation as is. The second equation, remember, I'm going to multiply both sides by negative 4. All right, negative 4 times 5X, that's negative 20X. Negative 4 times 2Y is negative 8Y. And on the right-hand side, 23 times negative 4 is negative 92, I think. All right, now we add these 2 equations straight down. 3X and negative 20X, that adds to negative 17X. Plus 8Y and minus 8Y cancel out. Remember, that was the whole point of setting it up this way, so that the Y's would be eliminated. On the right-hand side, I have 58 subtract negative 2. 58 subtract negative 2 is a negative 34. Well, to get x by itself, I want to get rid of this multiplication by -17, so I'll divide by -17 on both sides. Multiplying and dividing by -16 cancels out. Looks like I'm getting x equals +2. So it looks like it costs $2 to rent a chair. All right, I'm not done yet. I still have to figure out the cost to rent a table. We need to solve for y. So I can take either equation A or equation B. It's up to me. I'm going to use equation A. 3x plus 8y equals 58. But we know x is 2. So I'm going to replace this x with a 2. All right, 3 times 2 is 6. So that's 6 plus 8y equals 58. I'm going to subtract 6 from both sides. Remember, I'm trying to get y by itself. That means 8y is equal to 52. And now I'll divide both sides by 8. And I'm ending up that y is 6.5. So it costs $6.50 to rent a table. I could double check my answers too. I could take my answers and plug them in equation A, make sure I get a true equation. I can then plug my answers in equation B, make sure I get a true equation. All right, so again, to summarize what we did here is we wrote down x equals the one unknown. That was the cost to rent a chair. We also wrote down y is the cost to rent a table. And then from the wording of the problem, we wrote down equation A and equation B. Then we solved the system. In this case, elimination was the best method to use. All right, let's go back and do one more. All right, same idea. All right, let's take a look at this. All right, it says a family has 2 cars. The first car has a fuel efficiency of 25 miles per gallon. The second has a fuel efficiency of 15 miles per gallon. During 1 week, the 2 cars went a combined 950 miles and consumed a total of 50 gallons. How many gallons were consumed by each of the 2 cars? All right, very important that you carefully write out what x and y equal here. Remember, x and y are the 2 unknown quantities. And I can see this last sentence is telling me the unknown quantities. How many gallons were consumed by each of the 2 cars? So I'm going to let x be the number of gallons used by car A, I'll call it. And y is the number of gallons. I'll call it car 1, used by car 2. All right, now I need to write out a equation that, I'm sorry, we have to write out 2 equations based on the wording of the problem. All right, let me try to do the easier equation because I'm seeing altogether these 2 cars used up 50 gallons. Well, if x is the number of gallons used by one car and y is the number of gallons used by the other car, and they're telling me altogether the 2 cars used up 50 gallons, that tells me I can write the first equation as x plus y equals 50. All right, let me go to the second equation. All right, this one's a little trickier. It says the first car gets 25 miles per gallon. And the second car gets 15 miles per gallon. Now, if I multiply 25 miles per gallon times the gallons of gas I use, this will give me the actual number of miles that car 1 drove. The second car gets 15 miles per gallon. If I multiply that by the number of gallons that that car uses, that's the number of miles that the second car drove. But altogether, they're telling me the cars went 950 miles. So this is the total miles. Let me give you an example of this. This might be a little confusing. Let's say my car gets 25 miles per gallon. And I just used up 10 gallons of gas. That must mean I just drove 250 miles. So if I take the miles per gallon, multiply it by the number of gallons used, That should give me the number of miles driven. All right, so now I have equations A and B. I have to solve them. I can either use substitution or elimination here. It's really up to me. Well, I'm noticing equation A can easily be solved for X or Y. So I'm going to use substitution. You could use elimination just as easily and, of course, get the same answer. So it's really up to you whether you might want to use substitution or elimination. You might try it both ways and convince yourself that you do get the same answer either way. All right, well, if you remember for substitution, what you want to do is solve one equation for one of the variables. Well, it's easy for me to get X by itself. I'm just going to subtract Y from both sides. Okay. That gets me X equals 50 minus Y. I could have solved this equation for Y if I wanted to. That's totally up to you. Then we go to equation B, and I'm going to substitute this result for X, which is 50 minus Y. I'm going to substitute right here for this X. I'm going to drop in here, 50 minus Y. Well, notice this equation now only is in Y, so I can solve it. All right, let's do it. 25 times 50 is, I think that's 1250. 1250. Subtract 25Y, right? That 25 multiplies the Y, plus 15Y equals 950. Well, I can combine like terms here. I'm going to think of this as a negative 25Y plus 15Y. That's a negative 10Y. I want to get Y by itself, so let me subtract 1250 from both sides. Okay, that's going to cancel out. I'm going to end up with negative 10Y equals, let's see, we have 950 minus 1250. That's negative 300. Divide both sides by negative 10 to get Y by itself. Negative 10 on top cancels out with the negative 10 on the bottom. And it looks like we're getting the answer 30. So it looks like the number of gallons used by car 2 is 30 gallons. Of course, we're not done yet. We still have to figure out X, but I'm going to use equation A because equation A is going to be easier to use. Equation A says X plus Y equals 50, but we just figured out that Y is 30. So I'll subtract 30 from both sides, and it looks like X equals 20. So X is 20 gallons. All right, so again, this is the same kind of setup. We let X be one of the unknowns. We let Y be the other unknown. Then we had to write two equations based on the two sentences that were given to us in the problem. Once you have the two equations written out, you can either use substitution or elimination. Folks, just a reminder that you have this explanation available because maybe you're looking at this problem and say, I have no idea how to get started. Well, if you click on the explanation, here it is. It says, let X be the number of gallons used by the first car. Let Y be the number of gallons used by the second car. They're telling you how to come up with this first equation. Then they're telling you how to come up with the second equation. So here was equation A they came up with. Here was equation B. And you can see here they're going to use substitution. So you can follow this step by step to see a worked out example with a nice explanation. All right, folks, hope this is helpful as you're working in Objective 10.